You can spend your whole life becoming everything the world asked for, shaping yourself into something acceptable, something admirable, something easy to love, learning how to speak, act, and exist in ways that earn approval, and still find yourself alone at the end of the day, sitting with a version of you that you cannot stand. Hi, guys, and welcome back to our channel. In today's conversation, we're going to talk about the danger of self-loathing, how it slowly shapes the way we see ourselves, and why it's more harmful than we often realize. But before that, I just want to take a quick moment to share something with you. I recently released a book called The Day I Grew Flowers Out of My Face. It's a deeply personal and reflective piece about pain, growth, and learning how to exist with the parts of yourself you once wanted to hide. If today's topic resonates with you, I truly believe this book will speak to you in a deeper way. It's available on Gumroad and Amazon as an ebook and paperback, and if you prefer something you can hold on to, the hardcover version is exclusively available on Amazon. All right, let's get into it. You can spend your whole life becoming everything the world asked for, shaping yourself into something acceptable, something admirable, something easy to love, learning how to speak, act, and exist in ways that earn approval, and still find yourself alone at the end of the day, sitting with a version of you that you cannot stand. That line sounds dramatic at first, almost poetic, but if you really sit with it, you'll realize how real it is. Because self-loathing doesn't always come from failure. It doesn't only show up when things fall apart. Sometimes it exists even when everything looks like it's going right. You can be achieving things, improving yourself, doing everything you were told would make you proud of who you are, and still feel this quiet, persistent dissatisfaction. Like no matter what you do, it's never enough. And that's what makes self-loathing so dangerous. It disconnects your reality from your self-perception. It creates a gap between who you are and how you see yourself. And no matter how much you grow, that gap stays. Because the issue isn't your progress, it's your perspective. Self-loathing is not just disliking certain parts of yourself. It's turning those parts into proof that you are fundamentally flawed. It sounds like, I always mess things up. It sounds like, I'm not as good as other people. It sounds like, there's just something wrong with me. And over time, those thoughts stop feeling like opinions. They start feeling like facts. That's when it becomes a problem. Because once you believe those things about yourself, you start living according to them. You hesitate to try new things because you expect yourself to fail. You downplay your achievements because they don't match the impossible standards in your head. You become your own biggest critic, not in a way that pushes you forward, but in a way that keeps you stuck. And the worst part is, it feels justified. Self-loathing often disguises itself as honesty. It convinces you that you're just being realistic about your flaws, that you're seeing yourself clearly. But there's a difference between being aware of your weaknesses and defining yourself by them. One helps you grow, the other keeps you trapped, and a lot of people don't realize they've crossed that line. They think being hard on themselves is the reason they're improving. They believe that if they stop criticizing themselves, they'll become lazy or complacent. But that's not how growth works. Growth doesn't come from constantly tearing yourself down. It comes from understanding yourself without turning that understanding into self-rejection. There's a quiet kind of damage that self-loathing creates. It doesn't always look dramatic. It's not always visible to other people. But internally, it changes everything. It changes how you interpret your experiences. When something goes wrong, it's not just a mistake. It becomes confirmation of everything you already believe about yourself. It reinforces that idea that you're not enough. And when something goes right, you don't fully accept it. You minimize it. You tell yourself it was luck or timing or anything other than your own capability. So you never really feel proud. You never really feel secure. You're constantly chasing a version of yourself that you believe will finally be enough. But the truth is, that version doesn't exist. Because self-loathing doesn't disappear when you improve. It adapts. It raises the standard. It shifts the goalpost. It finds new reasons to keep you dissatisfied. That's why people can achieve so much and still feel empty. Because the problem was never their accomplishments. It was the way they saw themselves. And that brings us back to that line from the beginning. You can spend your whole life becoming everything the world asked for, shaping yourself into something acceptable, something admirable, something easy to love, learning how to speak, act, and exist in ways that earn approval, and still find yourself alone at the end of the day, sitting with a version of you that you cannot stand. Because if your sense of worth is built on self-rejection, no matter how much success can fix that. You will always find a way to feel like you're falling short. So what do you do with that? First, you recognize it. You start paying attention to how you talk to yourself on a daily basis, not just in big moments, but in the small ones too. When you make a mistake, what's your immediate reaction? When you compare yourself to someone else, what do you tell yourself? Those patterns matter. Because self-loathing is built on repetition. It's not one big thought that defines you. It's thousands of small ones that slowly shape your identity. And once you're aware of those thoughts, you can start challenging them, not by forcing yourself to be overly positive, but by being more balanced. Instead of saying, I always mess things up, you can say, I made a mistake this time, and I can learn from it. It sounds simple, but it changes everything because you're no longer turning a single moment into a permanent identity. You're allowing yourself to be human, and that's the part people struggle with. We hold ourselves to standards we would never expect from anyone else. We expect perfection, consistency, clarity, confidence all at once, and when we don't meet those expectations, we punish ourselves for it. But being human means being inconsistent sometimes. It means making mistakes. It means not having everything figured out. And none of those things make you unworthy. They make you real. Self-loathing tries to convince you that your flaws are evidence that you're not enough. But in reality, your flaws are just evidence that you're still growing. And there's a big difference between those two perspectives. One limits you. The other allows you to evolve. And I'm not saying this is easy. If you've spent years thinking a certain way about yourself, it's not going to change overnight. There will be moments where that old voice comes back, louder than ever. But the goal isn't to completely silence it right away. The goal is to stop automatically believing it, to create a pause between the thought and your reaction, to remind yourself that just because something feels true doesn't mean it is true. And over time, that pause becomes powerful. It gives you space to respond differently, to choose understanding over judgment, to choose growth over self-rejection. And slowly, that changes your relationship with yourself. You start to feel less like someone you're constantly fighting and more like someone you're learning to understand. And that's where real change happens, not in forcing yourself to become perfect, but in allowing yourself to be a work in progress without hating yourself for it. So if you take anything from today's conversation, let it be this. You don't have to become someone else to be worthy of your own acceptance. You just have to stop treating yourself like someone who isn't. And maybe that's where it begins, not with a big transformation, but with a small shift in how you see yourself. Because once that changes, everything else follows. Thanks for being here with me today. I appreciate you, and I hope this gave you something to reflect on.